All right, guys. We got my buddy, one of my best friends, the man that gives me shit constantly about everything I do, Mr. JD Cobb from Drawback Outdoors. And from the looks of it, you're
How's it
outside
going?
sweating your balls off, man. So what's up?
Yeah, it's just hot. No real way to put it. Hot, working. I finally just got off about 20 minutes ago, and then I went outside and shot my bow some more. So I'm really hot and sweaty.
Yeah, you did a 90-yard shot. You sent me a text a few minutes ago,
hmm
and I thought your yard that your workhouse has isn't big enough for that. So how'd you pull that off?
So yeah, the little rental house that we have here is max I've got is like 60 yards, and then I'm standing in the road if I want to go any further. Um, but my hunting property over here at the neighbor's house, 25 acres, I went out there and basically drove the truck because he hadn't bush hogged it yet,
Mhm.
the field side of it. So I just drove the truck back and forth a couple of times, flattened out a full spot and shot.
Hell yeah.
So that was
How
it.
was it? Did you hit 10 ring?
It was you know what it was not a 10 ring. It was to the left by about 6 inches from the middle of the target, but it still was, the height was perfect, but it was left. But yeah, I was just really surprised because there was one branch that I actually shot through and didn't realize it until I had my buddy with me and I had him watch, the rainbow effect of the,
Yeah.
arrow going up that high. And it went through the trees and still hit the target. So if I didn't have that tree there, I probably would have stretched it a little further, but I just didn't want to take the chance.
Yeah, you don't
But
want
it
to be
was it
missing
was
arrows
very
right now.
interesting seeing that. I've watched tons of tack videos, and they're all out there 120, 130 yards, and just that beautiful rainbow shot. And I've never seen it coming out of my bow, and it's crazy to watch. I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah. Dude, I did that at the archery range near my house when I did the 70-yard elk shot,
Yep.
and just watching it do that whole rainbow
Yeah.
effect or whatever, it was cool. I mean,
Yeah. It is cool.
I don't know if I'd want to see that on a deer at 20 yards.
No, no. If I saw that at 20 yards, it's all right. Something is definitely wrong with my setup.
For sure. So speaking of setups, man, what are you going to be using this year? I know you've told me before, but I can't remember your arrow weight or FOC or any of that.
Okay. All right.
So why don't you hit on that before we dive into the juicy stuff?
So my setup this year is the same bow. It's the Hoyt Torex. But I've got it restrung with 60x strings, and had it done at a custom shop. And I love them. They're flow yellow, and it's just big and bright, and ooh, look at me, and they're beautiful. I love them. I love the way they turned out. They quieten my bow so much. If y'all have a chance, get on 60xcustomstrings.com and order plenty of strings for your next string adventure that you have the next year, or maybe even this year. Hurry up and get it done before season starts. But 60X, I can't say enough about them. They are amazing string company. But that's the only thing that changed with my bow setup this year. My arrow setup, I started building last year off season, and this will be the first year with them an actual hunting season. But they are the Gold Tip Force FOC arrows, and they are 468 grains total weight, and I got 200 grains up front, putting me at a 21.5% FOC. Yeah, so I'm really excited. I've been dabbing back and forth, as you know. I keep talking to you about it. With the fixed versus mechanical, hybrids. Any of that stuff. But I've decided I'm going to stick with fixed, just because, again, I always fall back on the what if factor. And what if a sever breaks the moon collar, or what if the rage doesn't open or doesn't deploy. It's just, there's always that what if factor. So with a fixed blade, the only what if you have is if it's tuned properly. The only what if you have is, hey, did I remember to sharpen this? I mean, that's the only thing you really got to worry about with the fixed blade. So I'm going to stick with fixed blade, and I've changed the fixed blade up. I was doing the OG Montec, and I also had the Montec M3, the solid one. But doing some more research and found out that is metal infused. It's not a one piece. It's basically liquid metal that's poured into a cast and then hardened. So it is porous and it is susceptible to breaking. Not like the annihilator broadheads that are made from solid steel construction. And I just really don't want to spend the $65 or $75 for three annihilator broadheads. That is what I want, but I'm not going to pay that. So for now, what I'm doing this year, and I actually just tuned them yesterday and finished up doing it today. The new Swacker, they're not new, but they're new to me. The Swacker 252 fixed broadhead. They're made by a company called Steel Force, and then they are sold through Swacker. They've got a lot of backing with Steel Force. And it's the blade on it, the main blade, because it does have little bleeders. It's 1.5 inch main blade, which is actually a 0.65 thick blade. But the bleeder blade is a 0.875 of an inch, so it's almost an inch bleeder blade, and that's your standard, 0.25 thickness, as most other fixed blade bleeders are. So that's my setup I'm using this year.
So,
and with the strings, it did bring my poundage up, because obviously new strings will give you a higher poundage. So I'm actually at 75 pounds right now.
Yeah, good Lord, man.
Instead of my normal 72.
Yeah. So basically, with the broadhead stuff, man, like you and I have had plenty of conversations on this podcast, off the podcast, over text, in person, in the truck, on the way to a deer stand. Like this is something we talk about a lot. And
a lot. It's a huge rabbit hole. Like,
oh yeah,
Bunny Rabbit would be, Bugs Bunny would be happy with that one.
Oh, for sure. And the thing about it is, like, me. I mean, I said it yesterday when we talked. I'm really picky about my fixed blade choice, really my broadhead choice in general. And I think you're on the right track with the solid construction, because I love the Q80 Exodus, but I will say that there has been one or two times with the same broadhead. Now, granted, this thing has hit rebar. This thing, in my Reinhardt target, it's hit the plastic tubing that holds the foam in. Like that thing is destroyed. But one thing I did notice is the blades, after they go through hell, tend to not really separate, but start to separate from the tip.
Yeah, that tip will start to come off.
Yeah. And that is not a knock on Exodus, because I still think they're one of the best fixed blades out there. As far as replaceable blades go, I think they're the top broadhead out there for it. But when it comes
go ahead.
When it comes to solid construction, see, I don't like annihilators just because they're so small. I know they're accurate, but they're tiny. And
now, speaking of that, you're bashing on one of my favorites here, so I got to stop you. The standard OG Annihilator 100 grain is small. They also make a 100 grain XL.
Yes, I was just about to touch on that.
Yeah, which is bigger. And then obviously they've got the 120 and the 150, and they offer all three of theirs in a smaller and a XL size.
Okay. What size is the XL?
The XL it's 100 grain, but I believe it is it is still smaller than most. But I want to say it's 1.25 inches. So I know it's small. But you will never have to, if you pay that $75 that I will eventually, but you'll never have to replace your broadheads again. You can flat stone sharpen them and be done.
Well, I mean, I know of a guy that shoots the Montex, the original Montex, and he's been using the same broadhead for like 15 or 18 years or something like that. And he said that after that amount of time of resharpening every year, obviously you're going to lose weight. So I think it started as 100
Yeah.
grams. Now it's down to like 80 or 85
Oh,
or something.
oh God.
Yeah, he's sharpened them that many times.
Wow.
So
Has he got some more brass in there to help?
yeah, I don't know. I don't know the guy personally. I've just
Wow.
heard him talk about it on a podcast. But
I got you. I got you.
no, and the thing is too, like, I've looked at solid construction. I mean, I've looked at, like Day 6, definitely Iron Will. Those
Yep.
I think the Iron Wills are some badass broadheads, but
Yeah, they are.
um,
They are.
I can't
Badass
spend
price too.
$100 for 3 broadheads.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
just too much. But
Yep. And to touch back on your QADs, I've seen some videos as well as not only your experience, but I've seen some videos of that tip will start backing off.
mm-hmm.
But the one thing that they have over anybody else, which is why I think they are so accurate and devastating, is the blade over shaft design.
Yep.
That is, and Amazon has their own version of it now called the D Power.
Oh, I hate
And
that broadhead.
so the D Power, it looks like, if you wanted to try it, it looks like a Montec M3 solid construction, but the blades are swept over the shaft.
Well, they have
I'm
two.
like, okay.
They have two. They are actually, I think they've got 3 different sizes. You can get it an 1.25 inch, 1.5 inch, and they've got the solid construction and then replaceable blades. And literally, if you take the Exodus, say you take the full blade and you take out like where the blade on the full kind of curves out and then just cut that, it's the exact same thing.
Yep.
I mean, to a T, it's the exact same broadhead for half the price. But the thing is, it's a cheap Chinese made that, I mean, I'm not going to shoot any Chinese broadheads at a deer, I just won't.
Right.
But
I mean, we are in America, so
exactly. And that's why, that kind of leads me into, the changes that I've started making with my setup, because I said it in the intro, but I'll say it again. Easton, and you know about this, but maybe listeners don't. When I had Gary on from Easton, he offered to, let me try out some of the new Axis long range arrows and some of the new Sever broadheads that just came out. And I just built 2 of them. Now I've got 2 different vanes. Okay. I've got the hybrid 26s from AAE, and then I have the Bully Blazers. And I haven't shot the one with the Blazers yet, but when I shot the one with the hybrids, it flew fine. It flew great, but it was hitting very low, like 6 inches low. Now, I think, because I asked the guy at the shop when I had him cut them, what he thought about, switching from standard to micro diameter. And he said that, I'll probably have to move the rest some because it sits lower, which is fine. I'm not going to do it till after next weekend when we do the shoot. But it kind of made me want to tinker a bit. So the hybrid arrow weighs 445 grains with 18% FOC. The Bully one weighs 434 grains with 20% FOC. So I'm kind of wondering if I can get away. Dude, it's insane. But I'm wondering if I can get away with maybe not having to move the rest with a lighter arrow, but with more FOC. You know what I'm saying?
You won't.
See, and that's what I was worried about.
Yeah, you won't be able to, because the higher FOC, yes, it will pull the arrow to the target quicker because it's a higher FOC, but you're already sitting lower in the rest. So you're still going to hit low. It'll just get to the target and hit the target a lot harder.
Okay. Because it's gaining like 10 feet per second between my standard setup, which is at like 254. And now with the 434s, because I'm not gonna be able to shoot them today, obviously, but I'll shoot them tomorrow and I'll see what they do. But it's gonna be moving at like 260 something. So I'm almost wondering if I should just completely build those Eastons, because other than that, I mean, there's literally no change. They don't go left or right any different. They're just up and down different. And I mean, I was looking today when I put it on. It's not below the burger hole, but it's on the bottom half. So I need to probably rest up to get it covering. But I mean, you're my bow guy basically. So you and T-Bone. So anytime I hit any issues,
Look, you put me up there with T-Bone. I'm good. You all right? I did that.
Hey, It's true, man. Any questions I have, you guys can
But
answer it. So, but one thing,
so we were kind of getting into. Oh, go ahead.
well, what I was gonna say is one thing about it is, um, I'm wondering if because it's moving so much faster, if I might need to change the sight tape
Oh
or
yeah.
okay. Well, that
Oh
sucks.
yeah.
That
Yeah.
really
I mean,
sucks.
even if it is 10 feet per second, at 30, you're not going to notice an impact change.
Yeah.
Obviously, you will for lower because of the rest, but your distance on your sight tapes, you're not going to notice the difference until you start getting out to, 40, 50, 60, 70. Anything under 40, even when I was changing all my sight tapes so much, anything under 40, they all hit, no matter what I did, even before I made it to the shop to get a new set of sight tapes, they hit exact. But once I went out to 40 and further, that's when I was like, okay, sight tape's way off.
Damn. Well,
Yeah.
thank God I have plenty of sight tapes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so you kind of touched on, something that I wanted to sort of save a little bit for later. But real quick, one thing I gotta say is the whole so let me really I'm gonna ask it. I'm not gonna say it. If you were to
Before you ask, before you ask, before we get into the setup, because I know you do want to save it for later. Save it for later. Let's get into you talked earlier about the shoot we got coming up.
yeah,
Let's get into that.
okay.
Let's go ahead and get that out the way before we do another rabbit hole dive.
Get the important stuff out. I got you.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Well, how ready do you think you are for the state shoot?
You know, I I haven't shot this week will be the first time I've actually shot every single day at least 30 arrows a day.
Okay.
Every single day this week. But 3 weeks prior to that, I never touched the bow. So
Well, you do know that it's going to be 60 targets we're hitting.
yes.
Okay. I talked to one of the guys up at Ace today when I was there, and I asked him.
Okay.
It starts at 8:30, both Saturday and Sunday. But the thing is, too, we might not actually be able to shoot together because they split up um, the shooters. Probably because there's so many of them.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sure, like if we get there at the same time, I don't see why they would change
Yeah.
that. He said that it's 3 ranges of 15 targets, and
Okay.
so I don't know if it's going to be just constant going. Because I mean, I'm not. I'll be honest, dude. Like I've been shooting, but I haven't shot my target arrows once in like a month. I've been so focused
And
on
so that's
hunting
the other
setup.
thing that me and you differ on too is I don't have a target setup versus a hunting setup.
Yeah,
I shoot what I got.
and I may honestly, I may just, especially if I'm going to be going micro diameter this year, I might just take
Hmm.
my hunting setup that I have and use that just because it's already dialed in. It's flying perfect. I don't see a reason to change it up, you know?
Right. Right.
So I
I
may
got
just
you.
do that. I don't know. But um yeah, man. And what's got me nervous is you're gonna be on vacation next week and it's supposed to rain here all
Yep.
week. So if it does, there's not gonna be any practice going on, before the shoot. So
Yeah. Tomorrow is my last day of practice before the shoot.
mm,
So yeah.
well, all we can do is try.
Yep. Yep. I mean, it's just a state championship, but it's all right.
Yeah, I mean, what's that?
No big
Just
deal.
another day at the range.
Just another shoot.
But no, what I
And
wanted to
that's
ask
honest.
you,
That's honestly the way I think we need to look at it too. Is
yeah.
it's just another shoot.
Well, I mean, it's not like we're going to, the world finals or anything like that. Like we're not doing,
Right.
I mean, maybe if we somehow by the grace of God do it, but
Yeah.
I'm not expecting that. But no, what I wanted to ask you was if you were to switch back to mechanical, what do you think about Sever? Do you think you'd give it a shot? Did I lose you? Oh, there you are. Did you hear what I said?
Yeah. All right. No, I switched over. I got your text about my service sucks, so I switched it over to Wi-Fi.
Oh man, we're just showing all the behind the curtain stuff, aren't
Yep, literally.
we? No, what I was saying is if you do, because I know you're set on fixed, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. But if you ever did, go back to mechanical, would you give the Severs a shot? Because I know you're a huge um, Schwacker fan. Like that seems to be the broadhead of choice. But the Severs, I mean, I can tell you from experience, especially shooting them yesterday, they're like darts, man. And it's good to be able to use the same broadhead you're going to be hunting with. And
Yeah,
I just feel like there's a lot going there. Because I mean, I tried getting you on the G5 train. You didn't jump on. I told you about me considering using a Rage this year after me and Joe Miles talked, just to see. I mean, you never know.
Yeah, yeah.
But once Sever sent me those 6 broadheads, I mean, why not use them? Like to me,
yeah.
It's just Rage, but better. So I don't know. Would you consider using Severs, or is that kind of just you're so fixed on fixed, that
I would. The only downfall that I keep seeing about those is 2 reasons. The rattle, which comes from the little moon spacer that's in between the slip cam, and then also that moon spacer breaking and causing the blades to actually go vertically out in front of the broadhead.
Really?
Yeah. I've seen a lot of stuff. I've seen a lot of stuff on that, and those are the only 2 things that are keeping me from it. The full titanium ferrule and blades, everything being titanium and as strong as it is, I love it. The no collar, I love it, but that rattle and the little collar inside breaking, I've seen too many bad videos on them.
Yeah. Well, if I get a shot on a deer, I'm not going to say when, because then I'm probably never going to get one. But if I get one, I'll let you know how it does. I've never heard of the moon spacer breaking. Now that may be from people putting it in wrong, because I have done that. But I mean, I don't know, dude. I've seen so many test videos on that broadhead, and I've never seen anything happen with it. But I just figured I'd ask, because I mean, I'm not sponsored by Easton or Sever, and it was a huge blessing for them to even send this stuff, because you're talking
right. Oh yeah.
I mean, those arrows ain't cheap, and those broadheads,
no.
especially 6 of them, it's not cheap either. So I cannot thank Gary enough for doing that. But I'm just curious, trying to see what other people think, and if they don't work, I've got the Mega Meats, and if for some reason those don't work, I have the Exodus, and we both know how strong that thing is. So
yeah.
Well, look, you made a post on Facebook. Let's just get into it.
All right, let's get into it.
You made a post on Facebook today. I didn't
really. And my phone is still blowing up, by the way, as we're talking about this now.
I'm sure it is. I didn't really get a chance to read all of it, just because I was driving and I, was dying from the heat, so a little delirious. But basically, what was the post and what was the reason behind it?
So the post, which one of my first comments on it after I posted was, because someone had reached out and we're like, you're going to, because at the end of the post, it said, PM me, for an explanation. Mm-hmm. And the first guy posted, he's like, if it's a secret, or if it's not a secret, why don't you just go ahead and post it? And my first thing was, I don't want to offend anybody, by doing all this. So that's why I'm just reach out to me individually. And of course, I have offended so many people already. It's not even funny. But the post is, if you are shooting a fixed blade. Now, again, I've had people comment already about, mechanicals, and I'm like, no, it says it. If it's a fixed blade, you do not need to paper tune if that is all you're doing.
Meaning,
that's it.
Like if you're only
that was all. Yeah, that was all. Exactly. If you're only shooting fixed blade broadheads, you do not. If you're paper tuning bare shafts, you're doing it wrong, and that's what the post said.
So, what's the science behind that? I think I know where you're going with this because I've had issues before with a perfectly paper tuned bow and then threw
Mm-hmm.
some fixed blades on there and it flew like crap.
Flew
So,
like crap, right?
yeah. So, and you remember because this is around when we first met, and I'm like, yo, I'm having these issues. What do
Yep.
you think? So,
And after hunting that night, when you first came up to the house, you shot an arrow and it corkscrewed like hell.
mhm. Now
Yeah.
I attribute that to the whisker biscuit more than the arrow itself
Mm-hmm.
because I've shot that bow since then and it flies like crap. I mean, it literally with arrows that I know out of my bow fly amazing. I'll shoot the same
Right.
one and I can watch it without a lot of knock. I can watch it kind of fishtail and then
Yep.
it hits the target and it's corked left and it's just so. I mean, what's the science behind the whole if you're paper tuning and you're shooting a fixed blade, you're doing it wrong? Like what led you to that? I know you mentioned MFJJ and Tim Gillingham, but what gave
And
you
Levi Morgan.
yeah, well, like I said, I didn't read the whole thing.
Yeah.
So uh
So,
what's the
all
science?
right. The science behind it. Okay. So everybody has a spine chart, right? Every arrow company has a spine chart.
And they're all wrong.
Well, yeah,
For the most part.
yeah. For the most part, they're all wrong. But okay, spine deflection. Remember me telling you about all these big words I'm going to be using?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Spine deflection and spine deviation happens when you take, I'm going to try and show you here,
Okay.
the back of an arrow and the front of an arrow, and you push it together. Okay. That's the same thing that's happening when you shoot it out of the bow. Okay. There's two forces going on the arrow at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When you push on it and it bends, that is your spine deflection. So what happens is, and actually, especially with Victory and well, yeah, it is Victory because they do the rip and gamers and all that kind of stuff. That spine aligned little thing that you see on there is backwards
Hmm.
because we've all been told for all these years to do the spine alignment on the heavy side of the spine.
Mm-hmm.
Wrong. When you bend an arrow, it is always going to bend on what side?
The weaker side.
The weaker side.
Yeah.
So, in essence, those labels where it says spine aligned, when you set it on your rest in your bow, actually needs to be on the bottom.
That explains a lot because I've done
Because
that.
when you fire it out your bow, it's going to bend, and when it comes out, you're pushing that force against it. When it's shooting out of the string,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to want to bend towards the weak side. Don't you want support from the rest on the weak side? Instead of it the bend going up, and then it's trying to do this and catch itself in the air.
So basically, like,
So, but to get around to it is when you're, if you are just a hunter, not if you're a target shooter, or this doesn't apply to you. If you're shooting a mechanical, this does not apply to you. If you are just a bow hunter and you're using fixed blade broadheads, bare shaft tuning or fletched bare shaft tuning, doesn't matter. Does not matter. And knock tuning before you put your fletchings on is stupid.
God.
It is stupid.
Oh man, I'm gonna clip that.
So that's fine. It's stupid. So bare shaft tune an arrow, completely bare shaft through paper, and then put fletchings on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to change
Well, yeah, of course.
because you are changing the dynamic of the spine versus a static spine of a bare shaft.
Well, and you're
You're
also
now making
changing
it
the flight because of the vein.
correct.
So,
Correct. So when people are bare shaft tuning and then they're going out and shooting, they get a perfect bullet hole. Oh, mwah, money. And then they go out there and shoot a fixed blade broadhead, not a mechanical, but a fixed blade, and it deviates one way or the other. They go and they fix it by changing their rest.
hmm.
Why? You just paper tuned it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And put just some metal on the end of that arrow, and then you just go shoot it,
See, and
and
that
then
makes sense.
tune it to your field point.
That makes a lot of sense.
That's all you're trying to do.
When I was shooting, I was just playing around with a bunch of, because I mean, I've got like 100 arrows upstairs. So I was
Right.
playing around with them and all that. And I wanted to see, for my own, I guess, I'm not going to say confidence, but I guess my own curiosity. I had the Mega Meat BMP on a Bloodsport Punisher, which is a standard diameter. I fletched it myself. I didn't spine align it. I didn't knock tune or anything. I just was like, okay, throw it together. Let's see what happens. That flew fine. Took the exact same arrow. Exact same arrow. Took the BMP off, put an Exodus on there. They flew exactly the same. Now, I've never paper tuned this bow. You know that, because I haven't needed to. And
Right.
what was interesting to me is because you hear all these people, and I was thinking about this when we were talking earlier, you hear a lot of people say like, oh, well, in order to get your field points and your broadheads together, you need to move your rest. And to me, I'm sure there's something to that, because you and I have discussed that as well. But what I never understood is, if that's the case, if your broadhead you're shooting, like the Exodus, is, marketed as flies like a field point or close to like a field point, why move the rest? Because then it's not flying like a field point. You know what I mean? And so to me, it was like one of those things where it's like, okay, if your bow is tuned correctly and everything is straight and you have good built arrows and everything's where it should be, I completely agree that you just shoot your field point, throw a broadhead on, they should go in the exact same spot. Now, if you've got like a big, wide fixed blade, that's obviously probably going to change, because now you've got that drag and the turn and the direction and everything, the steering up front completely changes. So when you posted that, that's kind of what I was thinking, is like, well, of course, first off, why would you paper tune with a broadhead anyway? Because you're going to have more than one cut, or more than, just the vanes cutting. Because now you've got the broadhead cut and you've got the vanes cut. You don't know which one that is. I mean, maybe if you've got like ridiculous helical like I do, but even then, it's not gonna. It just never made sense. So what's funny to me though is when you posted that, I was reading some of the comments. I mean, you really did piss off a lot of people. So,
I had one guy on there. I don't know who he is. I'm not going to name drop anything, but there was one guy on there said, "Well, what if what if I'm running over 500 grain total weight and I've got, I got 250 grains up front?"
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, for one, that all you're shooting at that point is a broadhead attached to a toothpick. So I couldn't really answer him on that one, but it's just, you're running such a heavy arrow. One, North Georgia white-tailed, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You don't need something like that. But for something of that nature, I don't want to say it's impossible to even try and paper tune that, but it's one of those things. If you're running something that heavy, obviously you don't need a paper tune.
Mm-hmm.
You just tune your bow and for your broadhead. And that's the other thing too, is everybody's always talking about, well, a properly tuned bow. Okay, a properly tuned bow speaks to how many people in the bow hunting industry. It's for everybody's own setup. There's not a right way to tune a bow. It's a right way to tune it for you and what you're shooting. And that's some of the other flack I was getting back as well. But it's just one of those things that, and, to touch back on the paper tuning, bare shaft tuning versus fletching tuning, for you having fletching on there, the proper way to do it, because I'm sure like the knock tuning thing where I touched on that as far as being stupid. The proper way to knock tune after fletching, if you have an issue where you're trying to knock tune and you're getting it to fly a little bit different or closer to your field point, and you're noticing once you turn it that your cock vane is not up and down,
Mhm.
The proper way to do it then is it's a long process, but it's to um, tune it with the fletchings and then not tune it with the fletchings on there. And then if it's not, then you take the vanes off and replace the vanes
Mhm.
where it, is indicated it needs to be. That way you're going to have your cock vane up at all times. But with today's dropaways, again, it's stupid. It's not going to have any contact with the rest anyways because you have a drop away rest.
Yeah. Well, and that was one thing like I noticed last year when I was shooting with a whisker biscuit that
That it does play a big part in.
it does. And that's where I was going is that I think I had, oh man, like two or three different setups. I mean, I literally was shooting like I think it was two 300 spine arrows that were 495 total weight with like
Mm-hmm.
16% FOC. And I mean, it's the same ones that you saw when I had the lighted Knox and they were flying like shit. I think that it's because of the whisker biscuit that they were flying that way, because now when I shoot them, same exact arrow, there's no problems. But regardless, when I was getting ready for season, before I even bought the 300 spine, almost 500 grain arrows, I was shooting some 350 spine, same brand, same model, just different spine.
Mm-hmm.
And the GPI was lower, but I had more weight up front. So I think it was at like 505, 515. And I mean, it was super slow. I didn't know that at the time. I'm thinking I'm shooting, 250, 260. I was shooting like high 230s. And what was funny about it is I would spend, and you can ask Jessica about this, man. I would spend an hour or two every time I build one of those arrows and just not tune. Just and at the time I didn't have a fletching jig, so I couldn't really refletch them. I mean, I could do it by hand, but it always came out like crap.
Right.
But yeah, man, I spent many a night in the heat,
Mm-hmm.
not tuning with fletching and just getting pissed off because I'm like, all right, I have it here. Well, it's still kicking left. Let me turn it. Still kicking left. Let me turn it this way. Oh, it flew 2 feet to the left. Well, what the hell, And I'm sure there was a lot of stuff going on there. I mean, I'm not gonna say it was just the arrow, but when you posted that, it got me thinking because, like I said, I've never paper tuned my bow. I've never needed to. I just did the method you told me about lining it up and then shooting it and fixing it as you go. And it was fine. So I'm not saying you shouldn't paper tune. I think paper tuning is good, but
paper tuning has its place.
Exactly.
But if you are strictly bow hunting with a fixed blade, you don't need to. You set your bow up, 13/16 from the riser, with your rest, set it up, and then make sure you're running through your burger hole, get your 90 degrees, perpendicular with your string. And then just paper tuning is to make sure that you don't just absolutely miss. And it's just to help get you close, because even Easton tells you to paper tune at 16 yards.
Yeah.
And in. The reason they don't tell you to go any further is because if that arrow deflects anywhere or deviates one way or the other, you're gonna break an arrow. And especially if you put a piece of metal on the end of it, it's going that same path. It's not because if you're bare shafting with a broadhead, don't do it. But it's going to go where the broadhead's going to go. So if you have any deviation or spine deflection, pulling it one way or the other because you're not aligned yet and not ready for that yet, that's why they tell you to stay within 16 yards. Because if you do it out at 20 or 30 yards, that arrow is going to go out so far sideways and it's going to slap the target sideways and break your arrow.
Yeah.
Or it's just going to completely miss. So paper tuning, if you want to get pretty darn close, and then after that, don't even waste your time with it. If you're running fixed blade only, and if you're not target competition, if you're just a hunter,
so
paper tuning has its place.
Something you made me kind of question, because I fletched up one of my victories upstairs, like, I don't know, a month ago, and I went by the spinal line arrow. And you said earlier, you always want to have the cock vane on that. So basically what you're saying is, now, say I get another set of victories, say, I don't really like the Eastons and I get some like rip TKOs or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I do like the Eastons. I think they're going to be good, but let's just say something happens and I'm like, you know what? Appreciate it, but I don't really want to use these. I'm going to go with a different thing. Let me go with victory.
Right.
Just because I like them a lot.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with victory arrows.
Oh, no,
They're
at all.
great arrows.
Yeah.
But
If I were to
some
get
new
bear
studies,
shafts and fletch them, you're saying put the cock vein on the opposite end of where the arrow is at, because that's where the weakest spot would be, right?
I'm saying don't even worry about where you put your cock vein.
Oh, so that whole placement doesn't even matter.
The one thing you need to keep in mind is there's a new study that just came out with the MFJJ just did it as well. The Ramcat spine tester, that little weight thing that they push and they turn yeah. All right. So that what it's weighing and what people get wrong is when it flexes down, they're thinking, okay, that's the strong point of the spine. No, it's a weight. It's pulling on the weakest point. If you try and hold your arm out straight and someone were to push on your arm, your elbow would bend down.
Mm-hmm.
So that's its weakest point. So what they figured out is that what it's doing when it pushes down on it, that's its weakest point. So you need to actually put that on your rest, because when you're firing it out of the bow, it's wanting to try and bend that arrow. So, and you don't want it to the left or right, because then it's going to come out sideways.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to either be up or down. You don't want side to side deflection. So, but if you have an upwards deflection where it bends up, 90% of the time, if you have a good enough set of veins on the back, yeah, it'll catch it and eventually smooth back out. But you run the risk of hitting low, because
Mm-hmm.
that arrow is deflecting and it's going to go down. So yeah, Ramcat, the spine deflector tool has been in some new research, and they found out that it's actually been backwards, and it's measuring the weak side, not the strong side. So them labeling the spine alignment on the strong side of the arrows has now been proven to be wrong.
That's crazy.
So from now on, when I do my arrows, my next set of arrows, I'm not going to worry about if they say spine aligned. If they don't say spine aligned, I'm going to have my shop that has one of those Ramcats, and I'm going to have them measure the weakest point. I'm going to put that against the rest. That way it has integrity as it's going through.
Yeah. But what do you think about, like you were saying, the drop away rest, the arrow is really hardly even touching it. Do you think that, because you and I both use drop aways, you're saying have support on the bottom, but if it's dropping away.
But for that millimeter of a second, it's going to be supporting that weak spot.
See, this is why I go to you. I can build an arrow all day and talk setup, but when it comes to bows, man, it's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But, yeah, man, I don't know. What's crazy is, like, I've looked at the whole spine alignment thing and worrying about, like, where the cock vein's at. I don't even shoot multicolor veins anymore. I'm just shooting all the same color. And I've never, since I've started doing that and not really paying attention to, where the weak side or the strong side or anything is, I'm not saying that it's not a big deal, because it is, but I haven't seen any issues. I haven't had any weird flyers. And if I have, it's because my rest was completely off like it was yesterday. I don't even know how that happened. But all I had to do was move it over 2 clicks and then it was fine. And
there you go.
So that's what I wonder is, like, what I guess I'm thinking about is maybe the people that are having them, because you and I are both spined up correctly. And a lot of people go off those charts. And I know that Carbon Express's chart, their 250 spine is, and I'm not bashing them, but it just doesn't make any sense. They say their 250 spine is the same strength as their 400 spine.
How? Not possible.
How? That's what doesn't make sense. And Ranch Fair did a video on it, and he's like, how do you even, not really promote that, but how do you say that? And then people go out and buy them. They don't see that chart, and they're like, oh, okay, 250 spine. I'm shooting 80 pounds, and I'm 30-inch draw, so I'm going to shoot that. and then the arrow's flying like crap. So it just doesn't. I just don't understand. Like I feel like the spine charts really need a new overhaul, and they need to
They do.
really look at the research like what you're talking about, and actually start putting it out for the people that don't watch YouTube videos. There's plenty of people out there. Perfect example. I got a buddy of mine that is supposed to be coming on hopefully soon, who has a 30-inch draw, shoots over 70 pounds. I tried to pull his bow back the other night. Dude, I couldn't even get it started. And he claims it's 70 pounds, but that sucker's got to be up to 80 or something. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, you also got to think too, how long is that axle to axle?
I think it's the same as mine or yours. He's shooting a PSE. Oh God, I can't remember the model. I don't remember the model, but it's not any bigger than ours. I mean, it's no bigger than it's no bigger than my bear. So that's what was crazy. The whole reason
your bear is 30 and mine's 31 and a half.
Yeah.
So if his is 30, yeah, that's a stout 70 pounds.
Oh, dude, it's
if he had like a 34 axle at 70 pounds, it feels like you're pulling 50 pounds. It's stupid.
Yeah, his was insane. But the reason I bring him up is because he's shooting 30-inch draw at 70 pounds with a 400 spine arrow. I know. And now here's the thing. I'm not bashing it. And he's probably maybe going to listen to this, and I hope I don't get a text about it. But I've already preached the gospel to him and was like, bro, you're way under spine. But
well, see, that's where the dynamic and static spine come into effect as well, with the cut and the length of the arrow. Because if you take just for math purposes, if you take a 300 spine arrow that's standard 31 inches and you cut it down to 27, that's a 250 spine arrow.
Yeah.
And also, if you put more weight in the front and more weight in the back, you're changing it again.
Yeah.
It changes so much. So I will always preach to everybody, you can never be overspined.
Oh, for sure.
If I for mine, Black Eagle recommends I shoot, a 300. If they only had 250s on the shelf, that's what I'd use. Yeah. You can never be overspined. Underspined, it's horrible. Yeah. Like that guy sounds like he's way underspined.
Well, and so that's what's so crazy about it is, he's killed some of the biggest deer I've ever seen in person. I mean, this dude's a killer. He is one of the best hunters I know. And he taught me a lot of the stuff that I know. He was the guy that took me to kill my first deer when, I first started. And, he's a longtime family friend. So I'm not trying to bash his setup. But when he told me he shoots 400 spine, dude, and I asked him, I was like, do you cut them? Do you put any heavy inserts up front? No, man, he just buys them right off the shelf, throws a broadhead on it, and he shoots Rage, like the original Rage, and has never had any problems. Wow. I know. And I just told him, I'm like, you're just an anomaly. I was like, because I know other guys that are shooting your exact same setup and they can't get their arrows to fly right. They're, not getting pass-throughs. I think when he and I talked last week about it, he told me he's only had one deer where it didn't pass through. My jaw dropped, and I'm like, so you're telling me with your 400 spine arrow at 70 pounds and 30 inches that you've never had any issues, no arrow flight, nothing? He's like, no, man, it just works. I'm like, dude, I don't know how, because I'm over here.
I mean, it also could play in the fact of, look at, go back and talk to him and look at his furthest shot. Point of impact and shot placement is key no matter what spine you're at and what poundage you're at. I mean, we've got kids that are, hunting with 30 pounds. So, I mean, there's 700 spine arrows. It really depends. But I think that he would definitely notice a big impact change if he were to go out to, say, 70, 80 yards.
Yeah.
He may be hitting the dirt, because of that spine deflection will eventually take over.
Yeah. I want to say his farthest bow shot was like 30 yards because, down here we don't have.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And now we've gone to the range and we've shot good distances. I mean, probably 60 yards and still no problems. Now, granted, back then I didn't know what I was looking at. So it very well could have been flying like shit, and I just didn't notice it. But
Right.
we're supposed to go to the range next month, and I'll pay more attention to it. But he yeah, dude, when he told me that, I was just like, man, I need to tell T-Bone this or something, because he'll be like,
Yeah.
how in the world are you getting away with that? But I mean, it's, you know, it kind of goes back to something that Waddy said last week, where, dude, just hunt with whatever you want. You know, like
Exactly.
I'm not
Exactly.
I'm not sitting here saying that somebody like his setup, for instance, my buddy's setup. I'm not saying it's wrong. He's killed more deer than I
Mhm.
have,
Yep.
and so clearly whatever he's doing is working. But
Yep.
for guys like us that like to, you know, live in the rabbit hole, um, I can't shoot a 400 spine. I won't. I
No.
started at
No.
400 and I moved up to 350, or really now 340. And some people say that's under spine. I've had no issues,
Yep.
but
Yep.
my only thing with going up in spine is the GPI starts creeping up there. And that kind of goes into another thing I wanted to talk about, which is the whole FOC deal. You and
Mm-hmm.
I are shooting extreme FOC now.
Mm-hmm.
And I told you about this yesterday. I was watching a video from Average Jack Archery where he's like, I don't care about FOC. I don't think it really matters. Granted, 28 inches, or no, 30-inch draw at 70 pounds or 60 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
He's flying still with a
Yeah.
30-inch draw.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
his point, if I remember right, was that, you know, arrow weight is more important to him than FOC, because he's running like 8%, which if you look at the FOC charts, man, 8% is medium. And then
Yeah.
from 8 to 12,
Yep.
once you get above 12, that's considered high, which I've never had an arrow below 12. So, I mean, sometimes I just wonder.
I've had one arrow set up below 12%, and I did not get a pass through on that. But then again, I'm not shooting 315 feet per second, you know, with a 30-inch draw. That's not me. My setup is doing 270 feet per second, and I need that extra FOC.
Yeah.
So just basing off of pure arrow weight, my setup can't do it. Can't do it. So I got to have the high FOC. You know, it helps.
Yeah. It makes me wonder though, like how important FOC is, because I know in the Ashby reports, the main thing he says is arrow flight is key. If you have shitty arrow flight, I don't care how much FOC you have. I don't care what broadhead you have. I don't care how much your arrow weighs. If your arrow flies like crap, you have a bad setup. And,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, it's kind of funny because I remember this time last year, man, I'm over here telling you like, yeah, man, you need to shoot, you know, 500 grains and you need to have all this other stuff. And now my arrow weight is like almost 50 grains less than yours. And it's just crazy because, you know, I'm starting to get more towards the speed side, you know, because with the bear and only, you know, it only being 60 pounds and having 28-inch draw and all that. I mean, I like I said, I think with those Eastons, I'm at like with the Eastons with the Blazer bands or the Bully bands, I'm at like 262, 263, something like that, which is fine. That's plenty.
Yeah, that's great.
For a 430 grain arrow with 20% FOC, that's gonna do it. But,
oh yeah, without a doubt.
But
you're going through both shoulders on that one.
Yeah, and I'm not really worried about it. But I know that some people will listen to this and be like, "Oh man, that's too light. You need 500. You need this and that. You know, go get a bow that shoots 70." I'm sorry.
And they'll also tell you that it's too slow. Yeah.
I don't have that kind of money to go just drop on a bow. I was looking at all the elites and the Matthews and the primes and stuff at the shop today, and they don't sell anything under $800. And I'm like, crap, dude. I'm not getting a bow from y'all. Even Tiffany's bow. I was looking at a bow for Tiffany. It was like $320. I'm like, I'm not spending that on a kid's bow that she may give up in the next year.
Yep.
There's so much to it, dude. And like your Facebook post, I can't wait to, you know, when I'm done with everything I need to get done tonight, I can't wait to go back and read all the comments and just see.
I'm turning my notifications off because it is blowing up right now. You
should have known that was going to happen, though. This is as bad of a debate as the fixed versus mechanical, which is a stupid debate because everything now, I'm not going to say everything, a lot of things nowadays will do the job, you know?
Yeah. And I also just told half the bow hunting community that they're wrong.
Yeah, but if you didn't do it though, MFJJ and all those guys would have, and
He
they already
did.
did. That's
He
what I'm
did.
saying. Like,
He just released a video on it last night.
yeah, I'm gonna watch that tonight because I need to see like what he's talking about because
It's on Elk Shapes. It's not on his.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that whole thing, man. Like, I look to those guys. You know, I'm not gonna say for everything because they're hunting elk and mule deer and they're much bigger, you know, than what we have down here, and they're taking a lot farther shots. I think the
Yeah.
longest shot you and I are going to take this year would be maybe 40 max, and that's pushing it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I was just telling my buddy that when we were out there shooting at 90 yards, I was like, this is cool to watch it, but
yeah,
I said, and he brought his new, because he messed up his shoulder last year. So he brought his new Raven down here that he just spent $2,500 on. But he brought his new Raven down here, so we were messing with that, and I was shooting mine, my Hoyt at 90, and it's just that's cool and all, and I hit it, it's awesome, but my max for a deer is gonna be 40 yards.
yeah.
I'm
Well,
not gonna push it.
and the thing is too, like, you know, Cam Haynes does it all the time. He'll shoot 160 yards because a comfortable shot for him on an elk is 80 yards, and he wants to get
Yeah.
closer than that. You know, and they always
Yep.
say, you know, shoot double the distance you're comfortable or that you're going to be killing at. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't need, you know, a 90-yard shot in Georgia. Now, when we go out west, I don't know what's
Yeah.
going to happen that way. I have
Yeah.
no
I
idea,
don't know.
but that's not happening this year. So I don't know, man. I literally feel like people can debate this all day long. But when it comes down to the science you're talking about and the fact that paper tuning with a broadhead, which I've always thought paper tuning was done to get the bow in line and then you go out and shoot. Because I've heard this from a lot of people that you take it to the shop to get paper tuned, or you do it at your house and paper tune it, and then you start shooting with fletching, and then you start shooting with whatever broadhead you're going to use. Figure
Yep.
out what your bow likes, you know?
Yep.
And a lot of people, me included, I've done this. We'll take a bow to a shop, it's paper tuned, and then you think you're just ready to go. And then you throw a fixed blade on there and it's shooting 3 inches
I did
left.
that too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did. No, I'm not innocent behind it. I'm guilty about it too. But after doing my own research and testing, out there in the yard, and you doing your own testing, it's just paper tuning will help get you close. But if you're wanting to kill an animal, tune your bow to what you're using to kill the animal with.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it boils down to.
Yeah. I mean, I can't argue that and that's another reason why I like the Sever so much, because you can use that same broadhead. So,
Yep.
that was just a little plug. But no, one thing I do want to know is what's your opinion on, because, you know, especially now having these micro diameter arrows and, you know, changing that up or possibly changing that up instead of shooting standard. I've been doing a lot of research into the micro diameter cult, that I'll call it,
Yeah.
because a lot
Yeah.
of people swear by it.
Yep.
I mean, I think I said something to you the other day about it, where micro is cool and it might make the arrow stronger, but do you think that there's a really good reason to use micro? Because you and I both have shot standard the past however many years and
Mhm.
really never had any issues. And what doesn't make sense to me is whatever broadhead you're using is opening up the wound channel. So the less friction you have kind of doesn't matter, because I mean, you could have a aluminum arrow on there. They used to do that, you know, years ago.
Yep. Yep.
And it still would get pass throughs with no problems.
Mhm.
And plus, you're going through a medium that is like liquefied in a sense. So
And that's another thing too that I've been doing a lot of research on and watching a lot of videos and listening to a lot of podcasts about, not podcasts, but the video style podcasts like this.
yeah,
I don't know why I just can't sit there and listen to somebody, but actually looking at somebody while they're talking, I can do all day long. But everybody's doing all these tests into these gel blocks. Yeah, no, right? So everybody's doing all these tests into the gel blocks. That is such a denser medium than deer will ever be. And some of the research I've watched, they're talking about, I got 16 inches of penetration on the medium gel medium. Well, some of the research I had found was actually saying that if you get 6 inches of penetration on a gel block, you've already passed through a whitetail. I mean, it's just so. Oh, I'll get more penetration with a micro diameter or nano diameter or however they want to label it. Yes, I can see the science behind it. Do I believe in it enough when it comes to the actual medium of a white-tailed deer at 30 yards? No, I don't. You're also going down a rabbit hole of more expensive components, harder to find components, and also not even some of them don't even offer yet the outserts.
Mm-hmm.
They make the arrows, but they don't even make the outserts for them yet. So it's just, and then you're down to certain outserts for those won't even accept the standard broadhead.
Yeah.
Then you got to find a special broadhead.
Yeah. I actually have some six. Exodus upstairs I thought I was going to have to use, but thankfully the stuff I got it converts it to standard. But I mean, the thing is, like, I don't want to sound like I'm knocking micro, because I'm not. There are advantages to it, with the whole less friction in the wind and stuff like that. But what doesn't really make sense about that is, okay, fine. Say you're shooting a field point and it's a windy day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I can see the less friction. But you know where the friction's going to go? To the vanes. So unless you're shooting a very low profile vane, you're still going to have it. You're still going to have the wind drift and deflection and all that stuff. Like,
exactly.
And again, I'm not saying that, I think micros are bad. I don't. But I don't think that there's, at least from what I can't even really talk on it because I haven't killed anything with one yet. But
you want me to tell you what 80% of the stuff on the market is right now?
What?
Besides me saying it's stupid.
Okay,
it's hype. That's all it is. It's marketing hype.
Well,
that's all it is. Because before marketing hype, what was it? It was Fred Bear in the 40s and 50s killing stuff with, and none of this stuff we had nowadays.
Sticks. Literal sticks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they got the job done.
Yeah. And that again brings me back to what, Waddy was saying. It's just that a lot of the things, there might be some gain to like shooting micro. Let's just use that example. But people used to kill them hundreds of years ago with a stick and string and a stick that found on the ground, found a rock, chipped out a broadhead on it, tied it on there, and it still worked. So
correct.
And one thing you were talking about those tests, Joe Miles has videos on YouTube that you can watch, and he, I think he has the best testing medium out of any of the tests I've seen on YouTube, because what he takes is he takes 2 pieces of plywood, has deer hide on both sides, has jello in the middle of the plywood, and then he sees what happens. And he's got plywood that's just about as thick as a scapula. So he'll shoot a 470 grain arrow out of a 70-pound bow and a 60-pound bow. Now he's 29 inches and his bows must be blistered. Sorry, the cat's making a bunch of noise. He is blistering these freaking arrows, man. Like, he told me on the podcast, he's not happy, I think, with anything below 290. And I don't know how he's getting that much speed out of a 470 grain arrow. I mean, that's just insane. But in the video, you can see, he does a test of super heavy, like a 650 grain arrow. And then he does the 470. And the 470 actually penetrates more. So that it just shows, like, all these ballistic gel things, it makes sense. If you get a broadhead that, penetrates more, okay, fine. But you're not shooting at an animal. And so
Yeah.
I love watching the videos. And if you want to base
Yeah.
your
It makes for great content.
yeah. And if you want to base your choice off of that, okay, fine, go ahead. Can you get a good broadhead, decision from looking at what it does to gel? Yeah. If you've got one that goes deeper and then you've got another one that doesn't, okay, we'll contribute that to a whitetail.
Yeah.
It's gonna go further through. But I think the misconception is like when people talk about arrow diameter, is there is a happy medium there. I think based off of what the Exodus guys have done and other videos I've seen, 204 might be like the magic number, where you've got just enough, you've got good stability, you've got good GPI, you have less wind drift if you're going to be looking at the shaft itself, and there's tons of components for it, and it doesn't cost too much more than a standard. But I don't know, dude. I mean, like I said, I've never killed anything with a micro, so I could be completely wrong. I could shoot something this year and it just blow straight through, and then I jump on that bandwagon for a year, and then something happens, and I'm like, oh, forget it. I'm going back to standard. I mean, it all works, but
it does. It all works.
Because I mean, you've shot them both. Now I don't know if you shot anything with the micros, but
no, I haven't killed anything with a micro, but I've done my own testing and shooting with a micro, and honestly, the reason I went back to a standard honestly was because of the same issue you're having with it sitting too far down in the rest, and I didn't feel like changing my rest.
Yeah. Well, you might not need to change it. You just,
Well, my rest isn't a fully adjustable one, and I had already reached the max height of mine that I could.
Yeah.
And I was actually starting to get vein contact. So, yeah. So I decided, just know what, I'm going back to standard.
I'm gonna have to look at mine and see, because when I was setting it up the first time, I don't remember if it had height adjustment on the side. I think it does, but it may already be maxed out. So if it is, then I'm just shit out of luck. So,
and that's why I switched back to my standards. So because I just didn't feel like getting another rest.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, there's so many things we could cover with that. I mean, we haven't even touched on the broadhead thing. I don't think we need to, because fixed blades and mechanicals, they all work. Just don't get one of the, Chinese knockoff rages and stuff, because they don't work. They'll bend on you. Anything fully aluminum, I don't believe in whatsoever. I don't like it. I think that it's steel or titanium or nothing, And I don't know.
I mean, mine, the Swackers that I've got, the new fixed blades for me, the 252, it's a stainless steel blades, but it does have an aluminum ferrule, but it does have the stainless steel blades. And, the guy at Lusk Archery, he said that he was, at the end of his video, he was actually very surprised on how well they scored at all of his tests.
Yeah, I remember watching that video, and it got me interested because, I'm always testing new things, but I don't know.
Then again, I was worried about the flight because of how wide they were. I was worried about the flight of them, but I'm spined correctly and I tuned it correctly, and they are hitting exactly where my field points are.
That's all that matters, man. What does T-Bone always say?
A lot.
Damn it. Could have had a moment there. No, accuracy always wins. And you could kill one with a field point. I've said this 1,000 times. It's not legal, but you could do it. And that was a huge thing that I learned, especially after you saw the arrow and you were like, dude, that thing's corkscrewing. No wonder. And I think just a lot of people, the whole point of this podcast really was to kind of, or I guess this episode was to, talk about what you posted, because that pissed a bunch of people off, which I thought was hilarious. And also kind of get out there why people need to know this stuff, because what you know as well as I do, last year, how many posts did we see of people saying, oh, I wounded this deer, where's the dog? That's not good. And I just wonder if a lot of people are jumping on the FOC train, but not really learning how to do it correctly.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I'm guilty to that as well. My first year starting out, I had one that I wounded and couldn't find even with a dog. I spent, $150. I have a dog come out and still couldn't find him. So, I'm guilty of that as well. But now, knowing what I know now, and that's all I'm trying to do is just help educate. I'm not trying to say your shit's wrong. I'm not trying to say everybody else's stuff is wrong. I'm not saying you tune your thing wrong. I'm just trying to help educate you or educate them on the fixed blade side of it because that's what I use.
Yeah. What you need to do, and this can be a shameless plug. I know I've kept you for an hour, so I don't want to keep you too much longer, but what you need to do is kind of plug your YouTube channel and get some videos out there about what this actually means and show people, kind of the proof behind it. Because we could sit here all day long and say, hey, the Loch Ness Monster is real. We have no proof. Right. It doesn't mean shit. So
yeah,
I know MFJJ had a video on it, and I know that there's probably
Kim Gillihan's got a couple videos on it too from Gold Tip because that's he works for Gold Tip, so he's not just a shooter for them. He's actually one of their lead designers. But yeah, he's got a lot of videos explaining the same exact stuff I was as well.
Yeah, well, you need to get your content out there. Is what you need to do.
I know I haven't done anything in a long time. I know.
Been slacking, man.
I actually got on my that YouTube Studio app to where you can watch your dashboard and all that kind of stuff. I got on mine and my views have actually gone down. So I know I need to get more out there.
You haven't posted anything, of course.
I haven't. Yeah, I've been so slammed.
I know, man. Life has been just insane lately.
Yeah.
But cool, man. Well, look, like I said, I don't want to keep you too much longer. I have to go unload a whole truckload of crap. So
there you go.
To do another episode. I wanted to touch on early season stuff that we're going to be doing and tactics and what your plan is, but we just basically ran out of time with the whole debate and your controversial shit. Which I'm glad you posted because I feel like, like I said earlier, I feel like people just will listen to one person that there's no science behind it. And I'm not knocking anybody that posts these things. T-Bone makes videos all the time and it's all right. Everything that I've learned from him and, MFJJ and I guess Range Fairy a little bit, I don't really subscribe to the super heavy arrow high FOC thing anymore, but he's still right on a lot of his stuff. And, but the thing is, a lot of people will be like, all right, heavy versus light arrow. And then all they do is they shoot into a foam block and you can't do that. Not if you're looking to kill a deer where it's totally different. Because I could sit here all day long and tell you, oh, my arrows blow through my target. So I'm going to blow through a whitetail. I mean, should I with what I have? Yeah. But just because it's flying through a foam target doesn't mean it's going to go through a deer. You don't, there's no hard, impacts or anything in a foam target. So I don't know, man. I mean, we could literally do this for hours and just on everything, but we need to do another episode soon where it's not just controversial debates over everything.
So,
yeah, man, before you get
we need to do a fun one.
Yeah, well, I thought this was fun because we're over here just probably going to be pissing people off. I'm sure I'm going to get tons of messages from guys that listen to this and be like, hey man, you're wrong, you don't know shit, you don't know nothing. And look, man, you can't argue.
Look it up.
Yeah, exactly. You can't argue real science. Now for the past 3 years, you could argue that bullcrap science, but I'm not going to get political on this. But real science, you cannot fight it. You just can't. If they're showing that the spine indexing and all of that and spine alignment and all of that is wrong, then they need to take a look at that and say, hey, this side up, or do the testing like they've been doing. And this isn't just, I know people are going to think, oh, he's talking about Victory. He's talking about all of them. I'm not saying that one specific brand needs to change their stuff. I'm saying every brand needs to look at the arrow, figure out where the weakest spot is and put something there so people know, hey, this side up, and then go from there.
Yeah.
whether they're going to do it, I don't
Make
know.
it idiot proof.
Yeah, because I'm one of the idiots. I don't take my
Yeah,
arrows.
we all are.
Yeah,
We
like
all
I don't
are.
take my arrows to. I could have done it today, but I didn't even think about it. I don't take my arrows to the shop and say, "Hey, can you spine index for or spine align this for me?"
Mm-hmm.
I. It's not something I think about.
Yeah.
It's literally one of the last things that's on my mind. Should it be?
Yeah.
Not the last? Yeah, maybe.
But the problem with that is, again, 90% of the shops around here, if you take them to get spine aligned, because how they've been told for so long, they're going to spine align it on the heavy side. It needs to be on the weak side.
Well, I think that's a good spot to wrap this up, because you really can't get any more simple than that. So cool, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on last minute.
Yeah, man.
We've got a lot of things going on over here, but it's just season's coming up, man. So we need to practice for the shoot.
72 days before season, and we got a week before our state championship.
Yeah, I'm not even thinking about it, to be honest. I'm just trying not to. I don't want to get all in my head. I mean, it's not $100,000 shoot, so it is what it is. But yeah, man, we'll do another one soon in the next few weeks. Once I get another date that's open, or if someone has to reschedule, like what happened today, and we'll.
I see. So I'm just a rebound. Okay.
Basically, yeah.
Okay. All right.
No, I mean, look, man,
the rebound that still compares up there with T-Bone, so I'm good.
Well, hey, whatever helps you sleep at night. No, man, I honestly have been wanting to get you back on. It's just we both have been MIA lately and busy with work, so I'm just glad you had the time. Cool, man. Well, I guess we'll do it again soon.
All right, man.
All right, buddy.
See ya.